Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss how Brexit has dealt another embarrassing blow to the government as the next fleet of armoured ministerial cars can't be built in Britain. Have been for decades. But no, not anymore. Supply chain issues, The government will be getting their first round of post-Brexit cars from Germany instead. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. Right, so that's Christmas over for another year. What do you mean you're still on holiday? Actually, I don't blame you. I had to drag myself out of bed this morning. A lot of loud complaining. And perhaps Brexiteers are also wanting to hide under the covers after the news of yet another embarrassing irony. The first notable procurement exercise related to Brexit was, of course, the small matter of who's going to make our new shiny passports. Apparently, it was desperately important to have blue passports. The main benefit of leaving the EU, blue passports, like we used to. And it's like, we could have had them as EU members. No, EU passports are red. Slovakia has blue passports. What? Oh, yeah. Are they an EU member? Yeah. Oh, well. But our passports were made by a British company. This didn't last long. Before we'd even left the EU, the government gave the job of our symbolic new passports to the French and Polish companies. And the passports were symbolic because they were of less practical use, so they had to be symbolic. The UK passport was, when the Tories first came to power, considered the most powerful passport in the world. Not anymore. The power of a passport is, of course, the rights and freedoms it confers on you around the world. That is now considerably less. In fact, never mind what freedoms it gives you around the world. The UK passport is not even the most powerful passport in the UK. There is a reason why so many eligible Brits were getting Irish passports over the past few years, because, well, that gave you rights and freedoms around Europe and around the rest of the world that EU passport holders have. And the number of people getting Irish passports, it wasn't just that there was a lot of people from Britain getting them. It included a lot of parliamentarians, members of the House of Commons and the House of Lords, and Brexiteers. Nigel Farage tried, didn't quite get it. But what was that was the first symbolic procurement embarrassment. We've got another one now. So the fleet of armoured cars for senior members of the government. Currently, ministers use armoured Jags, made in Britain, of course. Won't be soon. The Met Police, who deal with the procurement of these cars, along with ministerial security in general, put out tenders for the next fleet and got not a single response from anyone in the UK. It's not just that they chose a German supplier, Audi in this case, to British ones. It's like there were no British ones. Basically, nobody within the shrinking UK car manufacturing industry can meet the requirements. So ministers are going to be getting some Audis instead, which is fine. But for the flag-shagging Brexiteers, surely a bit of a needle to their glorious Brexit. So what's the issue? Well, Brexit has meant some supply chain issues, of course. We're well aware of the supply chain issues that COVID produced, including for Jaguar Land Rover. We're all well aware of the downturn in Chinese manufacturing meant there was a shortage of microchips around the world, and that actually halted production at Jaguar Land Rover. That was well publicised because the media didn't have to cover that up because that was a problem caused in another country by COVID. They didn't need to cover that up. But as soon as COVID supply issues made way for the more permanent Brexit supply issues, the media clammed up somewhat. And the car industry has suffered very badly from Brexit. I mean, this was predicted as a consequence of Brexit, long before Brexit actually happened. Even Patrick Minford, like the only economist you will find having anything good to say about Brexit, the only one who argues in favour of Brexit, who's been wrong every single time. But even he told Tory ministers that they would have to abandon the car industry if we left the EU. Everyone could see it. It's hard to overstate just how important being in the single market and customs union was to the UK car industry. And it's because it's not just a matter of selling the cars to Europe. You may think, well, it's about selling the cars to Europe, isn't it? There is a highly sophisticated European-wide supply chain for car manufacture to get the parts. We can't produce every single component we need in this country. It's not efficient. It's much more efficient if you have a continental-wide supply chain as opposed to one in a single nation. economies of scale and all that. But that sophisticated supply chain is now way more cumbersome where we're concerned, because we're now a third country with all the red tape and expense and delays that come with that. Getting parts is a lot more difficult and expensive, and you can't just ring up saying, I need these parts in a couple of days. It's like, you're having a laugh, aren't you, mate? We've lost access to a lot of skilled workers as well, just like every other industry. So the idea of a car manufacturer, I suppose, being able to dedicate production to a unique line just for the government, because no one else needs an armoured Jag, is obviously out of the question. Even the Labour Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Jonathan Reynolds, is reported to have said that UK car manufacture has dropped by half in the last 6 years. It's worse than that. It's worse than that. You're thinking, I wonder what happened 6 years ago to begin this decline. But although Labour will be happy to point out how Tory policies have crushed another industry, their own plans will be made trickier by the same issue. Like Labour are pushing this post-Brexit policy of favouring British-made goods and presumably services as well. And all well and good. I mean, it's basically a buy local campaign. These exist around the EU. They've existed in the UK before we left. They're fine, as long as you don't implement the policy unfairly. As long as you observe the level playing field. Government contracts, for example, have to meet value for public money rules. But here's where even Labour will find a problem. I really don't think they intend to break state aid agreements, or indeed any agreements. They want to move close to the EU. They've said they want to negotiate a better deal with the EU, have closer cooperation with the EU. We know that they want to strengthen our deal. And we know it's not just a case of, they won't be allowed to. They'll have to. The trading cooperation agreement we have is a short-term one. It's designed to be renegotiated 2025, 2026. So whoever is in power then has to renegotiate the thing, basically. So that means the potential to strengthen it, to tighten those rules up again, to have closer alignment. But there will be procurement where the government just can't give the contract to the British company because there will be no British company who can deliver it. That's what this ministerial fleet episode demonstrates. Labour say they've got a long-term plan to revive the British car industry. Now, I must confess I don't know what it is, but as I keep telling people who are understandably miffed, this is going to have to include rejoining the Single Market and Customs Union. I'm not being obstinate here. There is literally no other way. If anyone's got another way, feel free. The problems we have with the car manufacture in the UK, and that's just one example of manufacture, is yes, we have a harder time selling, but we've lost access to the just-in-time supply chain that we used to be at the heart of. You will not get the manufacture of anything back under those circumstances until you restore that supply chain. I am more than happy to try and read proposals from people who think they might have another way, but no one does. Like the intelligent Brexiteers who actually work on credible plans for our post-Brexit future, they work on how we can manage a smaller economy in the future. They don't work on how you get your previous economy back. It's gone. So to restore a manufacturing base, you need to restore the environment which nourished it, which sustained it in the past. Even inventing a new type of car that the world desperately wants to buy won't help. Because you might think, if we had something produced in Britain that no one else could produce in the world, is patented to us, blah, 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 blah. Brilliant. Yeah, great. The producer of it, whoever invents it and starts producing it, they will move from the UK as soon as it becomes really popular because it will be easier and cheaper to do so. It'll be easier to sell elsewhere if they move to a larger market. So if Labour have any plans to boost manufacture or buy and sell British, then it must have a plan to properly reverse Brexit. It's really that simple. I mean, look at the current Tory party. Jingoistic, openly anti-EU, granted toned down a little bit more with Rishi Sunak, but still the majority of them. And they're trying to stick the union flag on everything as if doing so will duct tape over the cracks appearing in the actual nation which the flag simply represents. This is not a government that's been interested in keeping the EU on side or wanting to work closely with our European neighbours. In fact, they found political benefit in stoking up completely unnecessary arguments and friction that have done us more harm than them. The stupidest, most self-destructive acts of spite. And yet, even this government cannot arrange for our hugely symbolic passports to be made in the UK, nor even the government's own fleet of ministerial cars. If Brexit is an exercise in symbolism, and we're yet to see anything tangible to boast about, then seeing production of things that we used to produce here go into EU countries is surely a big poke in the eye. You know, we have our Brexit passports made in the EU. We've had to import more food than usual in order to meet people's Christmas requirements for the second year in a row because we can't produce as much as we did before. And now ministers will be driven around in German cars because Brexit means we can no longer make them ourselves. This is Brexit. This will always be Brexit. If we soften it, it will become less Brexity and less embarrassing. The closer we align, the less damage we do. But damage remains until we have fully aligned once more, and that's going to take a while. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.